Welcome to Secrets Unlocked. If you enjoy intimate confessions and forbidden stories, check the private archive linked in the description. Subscribe, settle in, and enjoy the story. I've been living with Janet for 10 years now, and for the first 8 all was well. But over the last 2 years things have changed completely, and not for the better. I started looking at various sites over the years, you know the type, and I concentrated on cross-dressing and transvestite sites. But this would only be every now and then. I did look at other sites also, but the CD and TV sites seemed to fascinate me. I had been into cross-dressing before I met Janet, but shelved it once she moved in. The small wardrobe I owned was put into the attic, as I knew she would not go up there, as she hates even the idea of spiders. Some 3 years ago, Jan got promoted and was now managing a team of people. She received training on how to manage people and teams. Assertiveness training it was called. It gave her more confidence, made her seem more in control, and provided her with skill like being able to give orders without seeming to. This training was reflected in our relationship as she became more assertive, self-assured, and confident. Jan was always the pushy one in the relationship, but the training extended this. She organized holidays, weekends away, and took the lead in things like organizing a spring clean of the house. I would be given the orders, she would help out mind, but she was the one in charge. About the same time, I found myself working from home, and Jan's promotion meant she was traveling to the US for a week or so every 8 weeks. The urge to dress came back, and once, when she was away, I give in. I began to dress and surf the net looking at sites and getting ideas for dressing, putting on makeup and so forth. Sometimes I would dress for the complete day, and I began to buy more clothes. I also got into the idea of domination and read up on various things that went on in relationships. I liked the idea to an extent, but did not see a way of making it happen in real life. Jan was a person with strict ideas of what was allowed and what was not. Now, don't get me wrong, she was not a prude or anything, and she would get into interesting situations, but I knew cross-dressing, and the like was not on. She had seen a picture in the Sunday Times magazine once where a man was made up and dressed like a woman, and she was very derogatory towards it. As for domination, she had very traditional views about roles. Over the course of a year, I gradually got more and more into the fantasy of being dominated while being dressed as a woman, and was wondering how I might bring it up with Jan. I should have remembered what an old friend of mine used to say: be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it, and he proved to be right. In January, 2 years ago, Janet and I took a week off and went to a hotel in the west of Ireland. I was not on the web for the whole of that week and missed it badly. We arrived home on Friday and spent the rest of the weekend together, as she was flying to the US on Monday morning. Again, I was not on the web, so I really missed my little fix. On Monday morning, Jan took off for the airport, and about an hour later I was dressed and surfing the web pages. I have my own PC and Jan has hers, so I was never worried about history files, etc. If she did need to use my PC, she had a login with very little rights, so she could not view my account. So I was sitting there in panties, bra, tights, skirt and blouse, wearing a pair of kitten heel shoes and surfing my favorite sites, and logged into my Yahoo groups, enjoying myself. I was about to go to one of my favorite TV pages when I heard a car door slam. I was puzzled for a second, as the postman had already left, but I reckoned it was some guy selling stuff, and I could just let him knock. Just to be sure, I thought I'd take a look, and I opened the living room door a bit to peek out into the yard. We live in a house on its own bit of land, and it is out in the countryside. To my horror, Janet was unloading her case from the car and heading for the house. I had 15 seconds to get into the bathroom where I could safely undress and hide the clothes. I had to go through our bedroom so I could grab a dressing gown. Not getting dressed is one of the perks of working for yourself. Running past the PC, I turned off the monitor, as I hadn't time to reach behind the tower and turn the whole thing off. I closed the bedroom door as the front door opened and Janet called down the hall. "Steve," she yelled. I had to come back. Gary called to say the meeting was cancelled and put out to next week. "I'm in the bathroom," I called. "Be out in a second." I tore the clothes off and gave my face a quick wash. I had not bothered with much makeup as I had to go into town for food later in the day. Throwing on a dressing gown and leaving the bathroom, I bundled the clothes into a bag I use for fishing and which had been lying in a corner for a week or two. I came out of the bathroom with the fishing bag and stuck it in the hall press, knowing Jan would never go near it. "What happened?" I asked as I went over to her and gave her a kiss. "Oh, the Americans had not got their work completed on Thursday, so Gary cancelled the meetings. Word went out by email, but they forgot I was on leave. He cancelled the flights and everything, but it was just as he got into the office this morning he realized about me," she explained. "Anyway, how come you're not dressed?" "Joys of working from home," I said. "I am going into the office for a few hours, but I did not want to leave my case in the car," she explained. She then said she needed to re-enter her travel request and sat at the computer. She had noticed that only the monitor was off and said it would be quicker than unpacking and powering up her laptop, which anyway was out in the car. What could I do? She flicked on the monitor, and 10 seconds later her jaw dropped as a picture of a woman in a short leather dress, fishnet stockings, and knee-high boots, and holding a cane stared at her. She quickly started using Control-Tab to view the other pages, and then went into history and began clicking on my previous selection. Looking up at me, she told me angrily to go away. I went and sat in the kitchen, not knowing what to do. Every now and then, I'd hear a curse or swear as she came across something else. She eventually came into the kitchen and told me not to touch the PC. She said if anything was missing or erased, that would be the end of us. She went off to work, and I wondered what was going to happen. I decided to come clean with her once she came home. That evening, she arrived back about 5:30 and went into our bedroom. She came out in a short dressing gown and sat at the computer telling me to get dinner ready. When I had the food ready, I went in and told her, and we sat and ate. I tried to begin a conversation about what was on the PC, but she held her hand up without raising her eyes from the food and shut me off. I'd only seen her anywhere near this angry. Once, when I had forgotten her birthday present 6 years into the relationship. When we were finished eating, she told me to wash up and put away everything, and then to come into the living room. When I arrived in half an hour later, she was still flicking around the net, but she looked a lot more relaxed and positive than earlier. She spent the next hour looking at various sites, keying in different search words, and going through different screens. She then turned to me and gave a small smile, then her face hardened. She told me I was to answer her questions immediately and not to think before answering or try to deceive her. She told me I was to be completely honest with her and any lies would be recognized. When I agreed with these statements, she asked me the following. "Have you worn my clothes?" I told her no, as she was much smaller than I was. "Do you have clothes in this house? Women's clothes?" I told her I did. "Go get all of them," she ordered. I went off and returned a short time later with everything. 3 skirts, 5 blouses, 2 dresses, various bra and panty sets, stockings, tights, 1 wig, 4 pair of shoes and 2 pair of boots. She told me to lay them out on the couch with the shoes and boots on the floor. In a bag I carried up were some tops and camisoles and a garter belt, as well as a small collection of makeup. When I had done this, she looked through the collection, making comment on how suitable, unsuitable they were. She looked into the bag and took out the makeup, placing it on the table. She picked through the clothes, flicking some to the side and some others on the floor. She then sat down and paused for a while. "I am disgusted at you for a number of reasons," she said in a calm voice which was underlaid with anger. "You have kept something important from me, something to which I believe I had a right to be made aware. You have obviously been keeping secrets, she continued, and don't you try to deny it, she said, pointing at the clothes on the floor. There were many nights when I felt a distance between us, and now I know why. Well, that stops now, she said. What do you have to say for yourself, if anything? I apologized to her and explained that it was just a passing interest and that I would get rid of the clothes immediately. She raised her finger and swung it back and forth and said, "No, no, 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 no. That is not my plan at all. I like some of what I see here, and I am going to get some level of recompense from you. I don't believe that this is a recent, passing thing either. The group you were logged into shows you've been a member of for 5 years, and there is another one for cross-dressers, which you've been a member of for longer than that. But I love you, and I will make things such that both of us get what we want." She paused. "At the very least, both of us will get what I want," she finished. I didn't know what to do or say. I could only stand there feeling foolish and feeling that I'd betrayed her, but also feeling relieved that she had not stormed off to stay with either Donna or Francine, her two best friends, neither of which had much time for me. Donna was a fun-time girl, always wanting to party and having a different boyfriend every month, and Fran was single and looking like she would stay that way. I sometimes felt she was perhaps a closet lesbian, as she never seemed to have a boyfriend. Jan looked at the time and said, "Okay, it's now just 9 o'clock. I want you to change into these." I changed my clothes in the middle of the living room, feeling very vulnerable in these conditions. Jan picked up a pair of panties, a matching bra, and a pair of black hold-ups. She also took a black dress and handed the lot to me. "Dress yourself for me," she instructed, and sat in an armchair, crossing her legs and leaning forward, resting her chin on her hand. "I only wanted to dress for me," I sort of stuttered. "If you know what I mean, it was just a bit of." And I faded off as I could see she was not interested in hearing my pleas. So I slipped on the undergarments and then the hold-ups. Jan leaned forward and picked up the black pair of knee-high boots I owned and handed them to me. "Put those on also," she said. "What do you use for padding?" she asked. I pointed at the spare stocking, grabbed some and pushed them into the cups. I put on the dress and then the boots. Jan did not seem to notice, and I was, for some reason, quite relieved. "Now I am going down to our bedroom. I want you to put these clothes into the empty press and drawers in the guest room next to ours, and not in the attic where you've kept them hidden to date. Throw those soiled items into the wash basket and wash them by hand tomorrow. I'll be back in about 10 minutes. Oh, come here a minute," she said as she reached for the makeup on the table. She quickly applied lipstick to me, told me to get about my business. "And pour us a glass of wine," she instructed as she walked down the hall. I completed putting the clothes away and was sitting taking my second glass of wine when I heard Jan's heels clicking up the hallway. She came into the room, and I could not believe my eyes. She was wearing a black basque, which I had not seen before, black satin undergarments, and her knee-high, shiny black patent leather boots. Her hair was tied back in a ponytail, and she had applied what she described as her knock-'em-dead makeup. She looked very like the dominatrix I'd been caught watching earlier that day. "Now I am going to be the dominatrix you've probably been wanting all these years," she said, "and I will set the rules for you to live by." "Okay." I could only nod in consent. She took her glass of wine and took a deep drink. "You will now tell me what it is you think you want from a dom/sub relationship." I outlined what I thought, and she listened. I mentioned serving her food and drink and massaging her feet, washing her clothes and her body if she was in the mind for a bath instead of a shower. I mentioned her telling me what she wanted in an authoritative manner. As I said earlier, I had not ventured too far into the domination stuff, even though I'd been touching on it for a number of years. Jan smiled at me and said we would do all that and a bit more. She told me to sit beside her on the couch. "We will be doing all the things you mentioned, as I said, but we will be doing a bit more. Starting tonight, I am going to punish you for keeping this secret from me. Now, before we go on, is there any other foibles you want to tell me about? Are there other sites you've been visiting that I should know about? Hmm, she asked, and then took another sip of wine. I thought as quickly as I could. I had visited sites where cross-dressers appeared, but I did not feel an urge to engage further. It just appeared to me that the cross-dressers on those sites were much better looking than on other sites. I could not be sure what Jan had seen or come across, so I had to tell her the truth. "Oh, show me so," she said mildly. I showed her one particular couple together. One was called Maria and was very striking looking. The other was also very pretty. "I see what you mean," Jan said, her eyes glued to the screen. She clicked on the next button and more pictures popped up. "Tomorrow you are going to shave your legs, chest, arms and body," she said. "I want you looking as smooth as possible." I was uncomfortable with this as, while I was not overly hairy, I did swim twice a week in the morning, and I knew it would be noticed in the dressing room. I started to say this, but Jan cut me off saying, "I've made my mind up. Hair under nylon stockings is disgusting looking. You can make something up in case anyone says something. Tell them you've developed an allergy. From now on, I want you to be dressed when I get home from work. I will call when I am leaving the office, and that will give you 20 minutes or so to get ready. Also, when you go into town to shop tomorrow, wear tights and panties under your trousers. Understand?" Again, I went to object as I was afraid something would happen when I was out, and I had always avoided being dressed in the early evenings, as that was the most likely time for one of our friends to call, usually for a quick drink and to say hello. "Don't keep putting up barriers and making objections," Jan said, obviously annoyed. "You'll do as I say, and to make sure you understand that, come with me. I said I was going to punish you, and it starts now. Every day from now on you will be punished until we reach the number of days you were deceiving me. So, we'll say, 8 years from now that punishment ends. In the meantime, any other sins or misbehaviors will earn you an additional set of punishment." Feeling the tension build, thousands of more private stories are waiting in my exclusive archive. The link is in the channel description. Now follow me. We went down to the bedroom, and Jan told me to stand at the end of the bed. She went into her drawer and took out some stockings and tights. She tied my ankles to the bed legs, one either side. She then told me to bend over, and she tied my wrists to the lower part of the bedposts. As there is no board across the end of the bed, it was not too uncomfortable. Jan slipped on a long, black lace dressing gown and walked out of the room. I heard the back door open, and she went across the yard, her high heels clicking on the limestone slabs. She was obviously heading for the main shed, an old cow byre some 40 feet long and 20 feet wide, in which all manner of stuff was stored. She returned after a while and entered the room telling me to keep looking ahead or down as she came through the door. She stood to the side of me and said, "Right, you are going to be punished for keeping your secrets from me." Her voice was very hard and calculating. "I have wanted to change things between us for a long time, and this was one of the things on my menu. For you to have kept this to yourself is unforgivable. So tonight I am going to cane you, and after each of the strokes of the cane I will give you an order, or rule if you prefer, which you will remember and obey. Do you understand?" I was a bit shocked as I felt all control was now lost to me, and I hesitated for a second or two. "Don't make me wait. Answer me now," she hissed, and I heard a swishing sound, followed by a very hard crack across my back, which made me leap and shout out in pain. I looked at her, and she was standing with her legs apart, the nightgown flowing down behind her, and she had a very harsh look on her face. She swung her hand back from behind her body, and she had her riding crop in it. "Now, do you understand what I just said to you?" I nodded and said, "Yes." "Yes, what?" she asked. "Yes, I understand," I answered. She swung the crop behind her and again lashed me, again causing me to cry out. "The correct answer is yes, mistress," she said. "Yes, mistress. I understand, mistress. That is how you will answer from now on. Okay." "Yes, yes, mistress. I understand. I will answer correctly from now on, mistress. While I'd imagined being disciplined by a dom, I did not ever imagine that it would be anything like this. 2 swings and I was in agony. I had to try and reason with Jan. Please, mistress, can we stop this now? I said. She crossed her arms, still holding the riding crop. A small smile grew on her face and she said, "You will take, accept, and enjoy your punishment. On the other hand, if you like, we can forget the whole thing. I will move in with Donna or Fran, and you and I can see from a distance if there is some way to salvage our relationship. Course, I will be bound to tell whomever I move in with what happened, and those 2 don't keep secrets very well. So, you decide. Shall I untie you and pack up my things, or shall we carry on?" She smiled at me again, and I knew I had no real choice. Fran would get a great laugh out of this, and while she would agree to keep the secret, it would slip out as some sort of jibe, and Donna, I believed, blamed me for coming between her and Jan. Up to the time I appeared, they were always out wining and dining, so she would definitely not keep anything to herself. I nodded and said, "Please continue, mistress." "Good, my little Steffi. Now I will give you your new orders for your new life," Jan said. "They will be given in no particular sequence. It will be just as I remember them, or think of them." There was a familiar swish, and the crop lashed my back once again. This time I only grunted, "You will obey whatever orders I give you, as they are given. You will not question them." Swish, "You will dress with my permission, and only with my permission." Swish, "Once I give you the instruction to dress you, will do so, regardless of the situation at the time I give the instruction." Swish, "You will address me as mistress or mistress, Jan, while you are dressed." Swish, "When you are not dressed, you will revert to your normal role." Swish, "You are now totally responsible for all household chores in this house. I may help at times, and if I do, I expect total gratitude to be expressed by you." Swish, "Normally, I will expect you to be dressed when I arrive home from work. We've discussed this earlier. However, when I walk in the door, you will curtsy and then drop to your knees." Swish, "If I do decide to lend you to another dom, you will obey her as if it was me." Swish, This was the second time she'd mentioned another dom, and I hoped it was just a ruse to humiliate and worry me. "You will do as I say, wherever and whenever. Oh, I've said this before. Okay, no slap this time." She paused and took a sip of wine. I was in a lot of pain, and tears were running down my face and dripping onto the bed cover. "Not much more now, sweetie pie. Now, where was I? Yes. You will be there for me whenever I want and in whatever way I want." Swish, "You will perform whatever act I want when I tell you, and you will do it without blinking." Swish, "Any infringement of these rules will be met with severe punishment." Swish, "Any infringement of any of these rules will be met with severe punishment. Let me tell you, little Steffi, that I don't see this as a severe punishment." Swish, "Now we're all finished. I'll release you now, and we can rub some liniment on you, and I've a cream here I use after horse riding which helps prevent bruising," Jan said. She untied me and I fell forward onto the bed. In that moment, the boundary between us had completely shifted. Jan applied the soothing cream, and the treatment began to ease the sharp pain. I was sure I was going to be bruised and marked for life, but as if she was reading my mind, she said, "Don't worry, there will only be slight bruising, and it will go in 2 or 3 days. However, you will have to give the pool a miss for the rest of this week." After a few moments, she told me to stand up and adjust my clothes so we could return to the rest of our evening. Still in a bit of shock, I focused entirely on calming down and regaining my composure. "We can go and finish our wine now," she said gently. We went back to the living room, and refreshed our drinks. Jan sat in an armchair and indicated for me to sit on the couch. Things are going to be a bit different from now on, Steffi. I will decide what, where, and when. Now, I am going to give you fair warning that I will be more demanding of you than in the past. I will be also demanding in new ways. You will get to see me in a different light. Donna says I have become much more authoritarian in the last while. She says you can see it at the meetings and the way I handle the group in the office. There are rumors that they want me to lead the combined group and are even thinking of moving that area of responsibility out of Minneapolis and basing it here. They know I don't want to live in the States. She paused and looked at me over her drink. You are going to be part of my plan. I will need you in the role I've devised for you as part of my escape mechanism from the cut and thrust of the office. I do love you, but I need you to be different. But play along with me, and you'll enjoy yourself immensely. Now, she continued, what did you think of how things turned out while I trashed you? Bet you were surprised. And here she gave a loud laugh. Oh, Steffi, I will have to be honest with you. I knew you were looking at porn, at that type of porn, for some time. You see, I found the system with only the monitor switched off some months back. You had gone into town, and I found your account open. I used the administrator functions to set up another account which had full administrator rights, so I could log in and read your files when I wanted to. I would log in every now and then, and shall we say, review your explorations. I could see the glee in her eyes as she told me this. I took a deep drink of wine and reached for the bottle to refill. Go open another bottle, Jan said. I'll need another glass or two. As I got the wine, she continued. Today was a setup. There was no trip to the US. I'm off for a few more days. I knew, or at least guessed, that you would dress after I was gone because I also knew about the clothes. When you took that trip to Jersey to fish last year, I had to get a guy in to look at the water tank in the attic. The washer on the valve was going, and that's what caused that knocking sound that so mysteriously stopped. He handed me down the clothes as they were in his way. I could not remember putting anything up there, but it was only after he left that I examined the bags and discovered what was in them. It was obvious what was going on. In that room, the dynamic between us completely shifted, and after a while, we both sat back, processing the reality of what had just occurred. So now, my little Steffi, you felt the bad side of your new life, and some of the good side, so now let's examine more of the good side. Pour us some more wine and I'll join you on the couch, Jan said with a smile. We sat together on the couch as the evening wore on, the tension slowly fading into a strange, quiet understanding between us. I hope you enjoyed this story. More intimate confessions are waiting in the private archive linked in the description. Subscribe for the next story.